but they said it was going to be very muggy this morning because of the hurricane, so I went to Linden today, so hence no suit. I pity you for being in that today because, man, it was kind of hot.
Well, you can pull it off.
Well, you know what.
I try to make sure. Okay, so how's it? Long time? It's been a while since you've been on.
Yeah, it's been a couple of months. Thanks for having me back.
Well, it looks like we're getting right now closer to your election, and I've been seeing you on TV with the commercials, been seeing your opponent on the commercials, and first, how are things working with the campaign?
I'll tell you, when I think about where we were 2 years ago at this time, first-time candidate, first-time treasurer, first-time manager, no resources, making it up as we went, up against a 10-year incumbent, I can't help but feel a lot better about things. We have a record to run. We have 4 district offices, one on the island, one in Portland, one in Rockport, one in Port Lavaca, that do constituent service all day, every day. I know that's bearing fruit. I think we have the resources to get a message out. And I feel like we delivered on what we said we were going to do. I sat in this room with you all and John 2 years ago, right about this time. And we talked about Mayor Son. We talked about going to Austin and bringing Texas in with the rest of the overwhelming majority of states in the country that require their legislators to record their votes, document their votes. And that's the way it gets done. I felt like we delivered on that, and people respond to that. Nothing Republican or Democrat about recording votes and accountability in government. And we want to do the same, take the same commitment to a couple issues to the next session.
What are going to be your issues that you want to take to the next session?
Well, I think this session, especially for South Texas, it's got to be about windstorm. Here in the coastal bend, we're paying the highest rates in Texas. Texas pays the highest in the country, not by a little, twice the national average, higher than Louisiana and Mississippi, despite their big storms. Electricity, fuel, and college tuition. But my baby, if you will, what I want to be the recorded votes. Recorded votes was this session. For next session is this service for tuition initiative. At a time when, if the current proposal at UT is successful, I know this hits very close to home for you, if the current proposal is successful, we'll have seen a 93% increase in tuition since deregulation in 2003. I'm convinced what it's doing is that the families that are really struggling out there, we make resources available. The families that are very fluent will find a way to get their kids to school. It's all those folks out in the middle who are getting squeezed, and the hope of higher education outside their means. So this initiative, we've spent the interim working, crunching the numbers, making it work, working out the logistics, is the following. In a nutshell, we want to make available to every new high school graduate in the state of Texas, every new 18-year-old, regardless of their family's economic background, the following opportunity. You give us 2 years of service. 2 years of service as a cop, as a firefighter, helping in the classroom with tax preparation, TAKS preparation, guarding our borders, preventing the beaches from eroding, laying fiber optic broadband line out in the rural parts of the state where we don't have internet access yet. Quality, affordable daycare. If it's right for you, only if it's right for you because it's not a draft in the military. 2 years of service at a subsistence wage, room and board. But after those 2 years, we cover 4 years of tuition in any Texas college or university. I think what it does is two things. One, it allows our young people to go into the work that they really want to do, that they feel is their calling, but they can't afford to do so with $35,000 in student debt, which is the average figure for a high school graduate or a college graduate in District 32. The other thing it does is allows them to come back home. $35,000 in student debt, I'm convinced, forms an embargo around Mathis, Sinton, Taft, Odom, Alice, and Port Aransas and Ingleside. If your calling is to be a teacher, if you're a Mathis pirate, and since you were a young person, you felt like your calling was doing the most important job in America, teaching in our classrooms, and you want to come back home to Mathis, and we're going to start you at $31,500, and you owe $35,000. And you're at a time in your life when you'd like to get that first car, you don't have to push start, and start thinking about saving for a house or a ring or starting a family. You can't come home. The numbers just don't work. You've got to go to Dallas or Houston or Austin where you can command the kind of salary that will allow you to keep up with that student debt. This program changes that. It takes the golden handcuffs of student debt off and brings our kids home.
Okay. I guess explain that in simple terms. How would it go? Let's say you said 2 years before or 2 years after they graduate from college. How would that work?
In my mind, it happens the 2 years between high school and college. Now, Senator Obama's proposal is for 2 years after college.
Right.
I think this works better. First, you get the loan default issue out of the way. You know, we had this crisis in Texas and across the country with folks who underwent a certain amount of loans and for whatever reason are not able to pay it back.
Right.
This time, the work comes beforehand.
Okay.
I'm also convinced, we sat down with dozens of experts, psychologists who say that the increase in maturity that happens between the ages of 18 and 20 is one of the most experienced in life. I'm convinced that that 20-year-old, when they get to Austin or to A&M, to get to College Station, or wherever they go, after they've spent 2 years doing the hard lifting of public service, putting in the sweat equity, the work, when they do get to campus as a freshman, are so less likely to fall prey to the dangers of binge drinking or drug experimentation, or just not seizing the opportunity. They have then, all too often, certainly not all the cases, but all too often that young 18-year-old turned loose from the folks for the very first time, running up and down fraternity row, does not seize that opportunity. Family after family that I talk to, those parents feel the same way. The average bachelor's degree in Texas right now, it's running 6 years to take. The old Rodney Dangerfield joke, my dad used to say this too, there's a name for somebody who spent 6 years in college, it's doctor. And without a doubt, part of the reason why it's taken 6 years is that folks are working part-time jobs and full-time jobs to keep up with this tuition. But part of it is also not seizing the opportunity. And that's tying up classroom space, nowhere more so than in your UT, which is so crowded already.
Okay, so now you said that when they graduate, say they're 18, and they go do these jobs, and you named a few of these jobs. What would their wages be while they work at those jobs? You kind of threw me off there too.
Great question. Great question. I want to talk about the numbers, because I want to caveat this by saying that there's dozens of programs around the country that encourage public service. Noble programs, Peace Corps and Vista and City State and Lone Star, and I applaud them all. This is not that. This is not another big government program. This is not Hands Across Texas.
Right.
This is a business proposal that only makes sense, but I'm only interested if it's truly revenue neutral for the Texas taxpayer. And here's how we crunch the numbers, working with the Comptroller's Office, the Higher Ed Board, President Powers at UT. The positions I outlined are all currently existing state positions. So this is real work. They're not mascots, they're not interns, they're not hanging out somewhere.
Okay.
And as those positions become available, they open up through attrition and advancement and retirement, we're going to ask these young people to fill in. But instead of stepping in at the $26,000 starting wage, which is what it is now, for an entry-level position with the state, we're going to ask them to do it for a fraction of that. Room and board, $10,000 a year. We'll also coordinate with the campuses to make dorm space available.
Okay.
That'll help with board. But at $10,000 a year, I don't know if there's another position, including the service, whereas an 18-year-old without a college degree or any technical certification, in 2 years, you can sock away $32,000 to the tuition escrow account without any sort of qualifications. $32,000 a year, that number is chosen because that's, as we speak, that's 4 years of tuition.
And would these individuals only work in Austin, or
No.
how would you do it in corporate?
No. Absolutely. That's spread out.
How would you do it, say, like in Corpus, if there's no dorms to put these individuals in? And when it comes to law enforcement, I mean, if they're 18 years old, I don't think they actually become law enforcement, because then you've got to put them in and take them out, and they quit at 20. What's the attrition there for those types of jobs if they're not going to be able to fulfill, as a police officer? Because, hey, if I want a police officer to work in my city, I want him to be as long as 2 years.
You put that training in. Right. Here's what's interesting. We found we get a lot of resistance from entities like you just described. Hey, we can't take care of somebody for 2 years and leave. And what we found, I wasn't sure how we're going to get over that hurdle.
Yeah.
What we found was this. All those folks, they got kids who are trying to get through school too. Not only were they amenable to it, but they suggested this. This was not my idea. They said, let's give them, during those 2 years, let's let that count towards a state pension, to encourage those folks after school to come in and make that same commitment to public service in Texas, in those same positions. Come back home and be cops in Memphis and sit in the tap. Come back home and be CPS workers, those positions we struggle to fill.